My name is Claire Whitmore. I'm 35 years old. And until 2 years ago, I believed love meant patience. Not the pretty kind of patience people write about in wedding vows, but the quiet, exhausting kind. The kind where you explain away distance. Where you hear someone say they need space and convince yourself it means they are overwhelmed. Not uncertain. Where you keep a place open beside you because you think history should count for something. Then my boyfriend looked me in the eyes and said, "Don't wait for me. I might not come back." So I didn't, and that was the part he never expected. We met when I was 31. His name was Daniel Mercer. And back then, his restlessness felt like electricity. He was ambitious, charming, always talking about cities he wanted to live in, companies he wanted to work for, lives he had not tried on yet. I admired it at first. I thought it meant he was brave. I had dated men who were comfortable being comfortable. Daniel was different. He made everything feel possible. He could turn a boring Tuesday dinner into a conversation about Barcelona, Seattle, a cabin in Vermont, or some startup job that would change everything. After 18 months, we moved in together. The apartment was downtown, with big windows and terrible water pressure, and a kitchen too narrow for 2 people to cook in without bumping hips. We split rent, groceries, bills, everything. I worked in tech. He worked in marketing. We both made decent money. We took trips, tried expensive restaurants, bought furniture together, and slowly built what I thought was a real life. Not perfect, but real. Then, about a year before he left, something shifted. Daniel started mentioning jobs in other cities more often. At first, casually. A role in Denver, a company in Austin, a marketing director position in Seattle. He would say he was just looking, just curious, just keeping options open. One night, I finally asked, "Are you unhappy?" He looked genuinely surprised. "No," he said. "I'm just thinking about leaving, about possibilities." That word stayed with me. Possibilities. It sounded harmless, until I realized I had become the thing standing between him and them. 6 months later, he got the offer. Different city. Better title. More money. The kind of opportunity people pretend they are too humble to want. Even while glowing when they talk about it, he told me over dinner. Pasta went cold between us while he explained the salary, the team, the office, the city. He smiled like he was describing a movie trailer for a life he had already imagined himself inside. "That sounds amazing," I said. "It is. Are you taking it?" His smile dimmed. "I don't know. It would mean leaving." "I know. Leaving me." He looked down at his plate. "We could make long distance work," I said, even though the sentence tasted wrong. "Or, I could look for jobs there too. I work in tech. There are jobs everywhere." Daniel didn't answer. He picked up his fork and changed the subject to a show we had been watching. That was when I knew the job was not the only decision he was making. A week later, we were getting ready for bed when he sat on the edge of the mattress like a man waiting for a verdict. His hands were clasped between his knees. He wouldn't look at me. "I've been thinking about the job," he said. I stood by the dresser, one earring still in my hand. "And I want to take it." The room went very still. "But I need to go alone." There it was, not loud, not cruel, just clean and sharp. "Alone?" I repeated. "I need to figure out who I am without this." "Without this?" I asked. "You mean without us?" He closed his eyes for a second. Like my words hurt him, even though they were only his truth. Repeated back. "Without the relationship. Without the routine. Sometimes I feel like I'm living a life I didn't choose." I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "You chose this apartment. You chose the couch. You chose the lease. You chose me." "I know. So what are you saying? You want to break up? I don't know. He whispered. Maybe. Or maybe we take a break. See how I feel once I'm there. That's not how relationships work. Daniel? You don't pause a person like a movie and come back when you're ready to finish watching. Why not? He asked. And that almost hurt more than everything else. Why can't we take time apart and see if we still make sense? Because while you're figuring yourself out, what am I supposed to do? Stay frozen, keep your side of the bed warm, wait around hoping you decide I'm worth coming back to. I'm not asking you to wait. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and said it, don't wait for me. I might not come back. For a moment, I heard everything in the apartment at once. The hum of the refrigerator, a car passing below, the faint buzz of the bathroom light we kept forgetting to replace. I looked at the man I had loved for 4 years and realized he had already left. His body was still sitting on our bed, but his mind was in another city, another apartment, another life, where I existed only as something he had outgrown. Okay, I said. His face changed. Okay, yeah, I said. If you need to go, go. I'm not going to beg you to stay. I think he wanted me to fight harder, cry harder, prove that our relationship was dramatic enough to compete with his ambition. Maybe he wanted me to make the choice difficult, so he could feel noble for making it anyway. I didn't give him that. 2 weeks later, he left. He packed most of his things while I was at work. When I came home, half the closet was empty. His shoes were gone from the entryway. And there was a note on the kitchen counter. He wrote that he would come back for the furniture later, that we could figure everything out once he was settled. Once his new life was organized, his new life, I read the note once, folded it, and put it in the trash. Then I stood in the middle of the apartment we had built together, and felt the silence pressing against my ribs. For one night, he let it hurt. The next morning, I called a painter. By the end of the month, every wall was a different color. The couch we had chosen after 3 weekends of arguing was gone. The dining table where we had eaten birthdays, bad takeout, and Sunday breakfast was sold to a college student. The bed disappeared next. I replaced everything. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted Daniel to hear about it and suffer, but because I refused to live inside a museum of someone who had decided I was optional. The apartment became mine. Then I did the thing he never imagined I would do. I started dating, not recklessly, not desperately, seriously, because if Daniel could choose himself, then so could I. 2 months after he left, I met Owen Callahan at a friend's birthday party. He was a 3rd-grade teacher, with warm eyes and a calm voice. He talked about his students like they were tiny. Chaotique miracle. He laughed easily. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. There was no performance in him. No constant hunger for some other life. No invisible exit sign, glowing behind his shoulder. We took it slow. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became Sunday walks. Sunday walks became him helping me hang shelves in the apartment Daniel no longer recognized. With Owen, I did not feel like I was auditioning for a role in someone else's future. I felt chosen, and for the first time in months, I stopped listening for footsteps in the hallway. I stopped wondering if Daniel would come back, because I had finally understood something he hadn't. Leaving is a choice, but so is not waiting. 3 months after Daniel left, I got a text from him. It arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was sitting in a conference room pretending to pay attention to a presentation about quarterly projections. My phone vibrated once, then again. When I looked down and saw his name, my stomach tightened in a way I hated. Not because I still loved him, because some wounds remember before your mind does. The message was simple. Hey, how are you? I stared at it. 3 months. 3 months of silence after 4 years together. 3 months of him choosing a new city, a new life, a new future. And now he wanted to know how I was. For a moment, I considered ignoring him. Instead, I typed, "Good. You." A few seconds later, "I'm okay. Settling in. The job is intense, but good. The city's different. Still figuring things out." I almost laughed. Still figuring things out. That had become his favorite phrase. "That's great," I replied. A minute later, another message appeared. "How's the apartment?" I looked around my office, then answered, "Changed it." "What do you mean?" "Repainted. New furniture. Looks completely different now." His typing bubble appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "It doesn't look like our place anymore." "No, it doesn't." An hour passed before he responded. "You moved on pretty fast." I stared at the words, not angry, not sad, just amazed. "You told me not to wait." "I know. I just didn't expect what?" Another pause. "That you'd actually listen." I leaned back in my chair. There it was. The truth. The thing hiding underneath every message. Daniel had left believing the relationship would remain frozen. Like some preserved version of us would still exist whenever he felt ready to return. I typed, "What did you expect me to do?" No answer. Then finally, "I don't know. I thought maybe we'd both take time." "Time for what?" "To process everything. To heal. To see what happens." I shook my head. The meeting continued around me. Charts, graphs, people talking. But all I could think was how strange it was that the man who abandoned our relationship thought he still had a say in how I recovered from it. Another message appeared. "Are you seeing anyone?" I could have lied. Could have avoided hurting him. Instead, I told the truth. "Yeah, I am." This time, the typing bubble appeared instantly. "Already. It's been 3 months. Still seems fast. We were together 4 years. 3 months feels really fast to move on. You left. You told me you might never come back. What exactly was I supposed to do?" No response. The conversation died there. Or so I thought. At midnight, my phone buzzed again. "I miss you." I stared at the screen, in the dark. Then replied, "You made your choice." "I know. But I'm allowed to miss you." "Sure. Missing me doesn't change anything." A minute later, "Can we talk? Please. Just once. I want to hear your voice." I should have ignored him. Instead, I called. Part of me thought hearing reality directly might finally make him understand. He answered immediately, like he'd been holding the phone waiting. "Hi." His voice sounded different, smaller, somehow. "Hi. Thanks for calling. What do you want?" "Daniel." Silence. Then, "I don't know." "Then why call?" "I miss us." The word "us" landed between us like a ghost. Not because I missed it, because I remembered it. The woman who once planned vacations with him, the woman who once believed they would get married, the woman who thought certainty was enough. She felt very far away now. "What about us?" I asked. "I keep thinking maybe we can fix this." My jaw tightened. Fix what? The distance? The mistake? Maybe eventually I come back and we try again. No? The answer came immediately. No hesitation. No confusion. Just certainty. The same certainty he never gave me. Silence. Then, just like that. "Yeah. Claire. It's only been 3 months. You told me not to wait. I didn't think you'd start dating someone." The honesty stunned me. Not because it was cruel. Because it was genuine. He truly hadn't expected it. "What did you think would happen?" I asked. "I don't know. You thought I'd sit around until you decided whether I was worth returning to." "No. Really." Silence. Then, "Maybe." I left. A short, bitter sound. "That's selfish." "I know." "No. I don't think you do." His breathing grew uneven. I thought what we had mattered. It did. "Then why are you giving up on it?" The question almost made me angry. Because he still couldn't see it. Still couldn't understand. "You gave up on it." I needed space. You needed options. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I heard it. A sniffle. Daniel was crying. Not dramatic crying. Real crying. The kind people try to hide. "I made a mistake," he whispered. Maybe he had, but mistakes and consequences are not opposites, sometimes they're partners. Maybe. Then why won't you give me another chance? I looked toward my apartment window. The city lights glowed against the darkness. Somewhere across town, Owen was probably asleep. Tomorrow we'd have breakfast together. He'd ask how my day was. He'd actually listen. And he'd still be there afterward. Because he wanted to be. Because I'm with someone who chooses me. Daniel went quiet. 3 months isn't enough time to know someone. It is when they know what they want. That's not fair. It is. You loved me. Yes. The word surprised both of us. Pestinze. Clean. Final. I loved you. The silence after that felt endless. Finally he asked, and you don't anymore. I thought about Owen. About the apartment. About how peaceful my life felt now. Then I answered honestly. I don't love the person who left. His breathing hitched. Claire. No. Listen. For the first time. I didn't stop myself. For the first time, I said everything. You wanted freedom. You wanted possibilities. You wanted to see what was out there. You wanted a life without me in it. Now you're discovering what that feels like. That isn't my responsibility. More crying. More silence. Then, I wish I could go back. You can't. I know. You made your choice. And you made yours? Another long pause. Then he whispered something that almost sounded like regret. I thought there'd be more time. I closed my eyes. So did I. Then, I ended the call. He called back 3 times. I didn't answer. I silenced the phone and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up next to certainty. Not certainty about forever. Not certainty about marriage. Just certainty about today. And after everything Daniel had put me through, that felt like enough. A month later, on a Saturday afternoon, someone knocked on my apartment door. I opened it, and there he was, standing in the hallway, holding 2 coffees from our favorite cafe, looking at me like he had flown across the country, carrying hope in a paper cup. And for the first time since he left, I realized he wasn't coming back because he loved me. He was coming back because the version of himself he chased hadn't been waiting on the other side. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Daniel stood in the hallway, holding 2 coffees. Looking exhausted. Not physically. Emotionally. The confident man who had left 4 months earlier seemed smaller somehow. Less certain. Less convinced that he had all the answers. Hi. He said quietly. What are you doing here? I flew in for the weekend. I looked at the coffee cups. Then at him. And I wanted to see you. You should have called first. A weak smile crossed his face. You wouldn't have agreed. Exactly. His shoulders sank. That answer seemed to hurt. Good. Maybe it finally gave him a glimpse of what rejection felt like. Please. Claire. His voice cracked. Just 1 hour. I should have said no. Every logical part of my brain knew that, but curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially when it comes wrapped in unfinished history. So I stepped aside. 1 hour. Relief flooded his face. He entered the apartment slowly. Then stopped. His eyes moved around the room. The new paint. The new furniture. The new artwork. The shelves Owen had helped install. The photographs that no longer included him. Everything. Wow. I closed the door. You weren't kidding. No. It really is different. That was the point. His gaze lingered on the living room. The place where our old couch used to be. The place where we'd spent countless Sundays watching movies. The place where he had once promised we'd grow old together. Now it looked like a stranger's home. Because to him, it's strange. He said softly. What is? It feels like I never lived here. I almost left. You don't anymore. We sat down. He held his coffee tightly, like it was the only familiar thing left. Finally, he looked at me and said the words I had known were coming. I made a mistake. There it was. The sentence he'd flown across the country to deliver. The sentence he'd probably rehearsed 100 times. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just distance. You left. I said. I know. You chose this. I know. You told me not to wait. His eyes dropped. I know. So, what exactly are you hoping happens here? He swallowed. Then finally answered, I want another chance. The room became very quiet. Outside, traffic moved through the city. A siren echoed somewhere in the distance. Life continued. Uninterested in our drama. You left me. I said, I know. You chose another city. I know. You chose another future. I know. Then, why should I trust you now? His face tightened. Because I was wrong. That's not trust. It's growth. No. I leaned forward. It's regret. The word landed hard. I saw it in his expression. Because he knew I was right. He wasn't standing in my apartment because he had discovered some profound truth about love. He was standing there because the life he'd chosen wasn't the life he'd imagined. The dream hadn't delivered. The adventure hadn't healed him. And now, he wanted to come home. Unfortunately for him, home no longer existed. I thought I needed space. He said, I thought I needed to figure out who I was. And a bitter smile appeared. I figured out I already had everything I needed. I nodded slowly. That's nice. His eyebrows pulled together. That's it. What else do you want me to say, Claire? No. I shook my head. You don't get credit for realizing your mistake after making it. His expression hardened. For the first time, frustration appeared beneath the sadness. We had 4 years together. And, doesn't that matter? It mattered. Past tense. Again. The word hit him like a punch. It mattered until you left. He looked away. You're acting like none of it meant anything. I'm acting like it ended. Because I made one mistake. You didn't forget an anniversary. Daniel, I could feel my voice sharpening. You didn't accidentally hurt my feelings. You walked away. You left. You chose a future that didn't include me. His jaw tightened. I didn't know. Exactly. The answer came instantly. You didn't know. You weren't sure. And that's the problem. For several seconds, he stared at the floor. Then, quietly, I know you're seeing someone. There it was. The real reason. Not just regret, competition, fear, loss. The realization that I hadn't remained available. Yes. Do you love him? The question surprised me. I hadn't expected it. Not yet. I thought about Owen. His patience. His consistency. The way he never made me wonder where I stood. The way he showed up every single day. I care about him. Daniel's face fell. Already. The irony almost made me smile. Months earlier, he'd asked the same question over the phone. As if time was the issue. As if commitment came from a calendar. Some people don't take 4 years to decide. The words slipped out before I could stop them. His face went white. Silence. Then, that's cruel. No. I met his eyes. It's honest. For a moment I thought he might argue. Instead he just looked tired. Completely exhausted. The kind of tired that comes when reality finally catches up with fantasy. Then his voice softened. Do you ever miss me? The question surprised me. Not because he asked it. Because he genuinely needed the answer. I thought carefully. Then nodded. Sometimes. Hope flashed across his face. I continued. I miss who I thought you were. The hope disappeared instantly. I miss the future I thought we were building. His eyes filled with tears. I miss the version of you who made promises. Now he looked shattered. Because deep down, he knew exactly what I meant. The man sitting across from me wasn't that version. Maybe he never had been. A tear rolled down his cheek. I still love you. I believed him. That was the worst part. I believed he loved me. But love without commitment is just emotion. And emotion alone doesn't build a life. Maybe you do. His shoulders trembled. Then why won't you give me another chance? Because you'll leave again. No. You don't know that. I do. I've learned. I shook my head. You learned because losing me hurt. His expression froze. I continued. If the new city had been everything you dreamed, you wouldn't be here. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he knew. He knew. And I knew. The truth stood between us. Silent and undeniable. Finally, he stood up. His face was red. His eyes swollen. I thought you'd understand. I do understand. No. You don't. I understand perfectly. I stood too. I understand that you wanted to leave. I understand that you regretted it. I understand that you're lonely. His expression twisted. That's not fair. Neither was asking me to wait while you figured out whether I was enough. The words hung in the air, heavy. Final? Then, something changed in his face. The last bit of hope disappeared. Not weakened. Kune? And for the first time since arriving, he seemed to accept reality. This wasn't a pause. This wasn't a break. This wasn't unfinished. It was over. Completely over. He walked toward the door, then stopped, without turning around. He asked, if things don't work out with him. I closed my eyes. There it was. The backup plan question. The question that revealed everything. If things don't work out with Owen. He swallowed. Would you ever come back to me? The answer came immediately. No. He flinched, as if I'd physically struck him. Then he nodded once. A tiny movement. Almost invisible. I understand. But I don't think he did. Not yet, because a week later, after returning to his new city, he would send another message, then another, and eventually, he would make a decision that would change both of our lives forever. A decision he believed would prove how much he loved me. A decision that would finally convince me to take him back. Instead, it would become the last mistake he ever made, where I was concerned. A week after Daniel flew home, my phone buzzed again. I wasn't surprised. Some part of me had expected it. The visit hadn't given him what he wanted. If anything, it had made things worse. Because now he knew exactly what he had lost. The message was short. I'm sorry about last weekend. You should be. A minute later, I shouldn't have shown up without asking. No, you shouldn't have. Several dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, I just needed you to know how I felt. I stared at the screen, then typed, the truth. I know how you feel. It doesn't change anything. Several minutes passed before his reply came. Will it ever change? No. Even if things don't work out with Owen. No. The answer seemed to hit him hard. His next message took nearly 20 minutes. Why? Because you showed me who you are. I waited. Then added, and I believe you. His response came immediately. People change. Maybe. But I'm not interested in waiting around to find out. That was the last message of the night. For a while, I thought maybe it was finally over. I was wrong. A month later, I was cooking dinner with Owen when my phone rang. Daniel. Again. I almost ignored it. Then Owen glanced toward the screen. You should answer. Isail. Why? Because if you don't, he'll keep calling. He wasn't wrong. So I answered. And put the call on speaker. No secrets. No hidden conversations. No emotional affairs disguised as closure. Just honesty. Hello? Daniel sounded nervous. More nervous than usual. Claire. What do you want? Several seconds passed. Then, I need to know something. My shoulders tightened. What? Do you love him? I looked at Owen. He continued chopping vegetables as if he couldn't hear a thing. Giving me privacy, despite standing 6 feet away. I appreciated that about him. His confidence. His trust. His lack of insecurity. Yes. Silence. Long silence. Then, already, I closed my eyes. Not this again. Daniel. It's only been a few months. It doesn't matter. How can it not matter? Because time wasn't the issue. Certainty was. And that was something Daniel still didn't understand. When you're with the right person, I said quietly, you don't spend every day wondering if they're going to leave. Another long silence. Then, so, I wasn't the right person. If you were, you wouldn't have left. The silence that followed felt endless. Then the line disconnected. He hung up. That was the last direct conversation we had for almost 2 months. During those months, my relationship with Owen grew stronger, naturally, effortlessly, without drama, without uncertainty, without one person constantly wondering whether another life might be better. And for the first time in years, peace became normal. Then Daniel called again. This time, his voice sounded strangely excited, almost hopeful. I quit my job. I blinked. Okay. I'm moving back. My stomach sank. Not because I wanted him back. Because I knew exactly what this meant. He still hadn't understood. What are you talking about? I'm moving home. Home. The word irritated me immediately. Because the city wasn't home. Not anymore. Not for us. I'm taking a new position. Why? Silence. Then. Because I want another chance. I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. Daniel. I'm serious. Suawi. He continued anyway, as if he hadn't heard me. As soon as I'm back. We can talk. No. We can spend time together. No. We can figure things out. No. Each answer came faster than the last. Eventually, frustration crept into his voice. Why are you making this so difficult? I almost dropped the phone. Difficult. The man who abandoned a 4-year relationship was accusing me of being difficult. You're not moving back for me. Yes. I am. No. My voice hardened. You're moving back because your adventure failed. The silence on the other end confirmed everything. I continued. If that job had been everything you dreamed it would be, you'd still be there. That's not fair. It's true. He didn't argue, because he couldn't. Eventually he whispered, I'm choosing you. The words should have mattered. Years earlier they would have. Now, they meant nothing. Because people reveal their priorities through actions, and Daniel had already revealed his. Too late. The silence stretched between us. Then I heard him crying. Again. The same broken sound I'd heard during every conversation since he left. I still love you. Maybe he did. But love wasn't the problem. Commitment was. You didn't love me enough to stay. Then I hung up. And blocked his number. Immediately. No hesitation. No guilt. No second thoughts. Phone. Social media. Email. Everything. Gone. For the first time since he left, there was complete silence. 6 months after Daniel moved away, he moved back. I learned about it through mutual friends. Apparently he'd taken a lower-paying job. Apparently he'd rented a smaller apartment. Apparently he'd rebuilt his entire life around a hope that no longer existed. One friend asked if I felt bad. I didn't. Not because I was cruel, because adults are responsible for their own decisions. Daniel had made his, just like I'd made mine. A month later, on the anniversary of the day, Owen and I met. He proposed. There was no hesitation. No uncertainty. No speech about needing space. No discussion about finding himself. Just certainty. Just love. Just commitment. And when he asked me to marry him, I said yes before he finished the question. We began planning a small wedding. Close friends. Close family. People who had actually supported us. People who understood what commitment looked like. Somewhere along the way, Daniel heard about the engagement. Mutual friends told me he took it badly. Apparently he left a party after hearing the news. Apparently he cried. Apparently he called in sick to work. Apparently he spent weeks struggling with the reality that the door he'd expected to remain open had finally closed. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Nothing. Because by then, he was no longer part of my story. He was just someone who used to be. The final thing I heard about him came on my wedding day. Security approached me before the ceremony. One of the guards looked uncomfortable. We had someone try to enter. I immediately knew. Daniel. The guard nodded. I wasn't surprised. Months earlier, I'd provided his photograph just in case. Not because I expected drama. Because I refused to risk it. Apparently he showed up dressed for a wedding. Apparently he argued. Apparently he insisted he just wanted to talk. He never got inside. The guards turned him away. And my wedding proceeded exactly as planned. Later, he mailed a thick envelope to my parents' house. Several pages. A letter. Maybe an apology. Maybe a confession. Maybe a plea. I never opened it. My mother forwarded it to me. I threw it away, unopened. Whatever he had to say belonged to a version of my life that no longer existed. Today, 2 years have passed since Daniel left. 18 months since I blocked him. 1 year since I got engaged. 6 months since I got married. I'm happy. Not because life is perfect. Because it's peaceful. Owen is everything Daniel wasn't. Present. Committed. Certain. He doesn't need distance to appreciate what we have. He doesn't need loss to understand value. He chooses me. Every day. And I choose him. Every day. The biggest mistake people make about my story is believing the irreversible change was repainting the apartment, or replacing furniture, or deleting photographs. Those things were superficial. They could all have been undone. The real, irreversible change happened the moment I listened. The moment Daniel said, "Don't wait for me. I might not come back." And I believed him. I let go. Completely. No backup plan. No open door. No secret hope. No reserved seat waiting for his return. And when he finally came back, months later, carrying regret, promises, and second chances, he discovered something he never expected. The woman he left behind was gone. Not because she disappeared, because she moved forward. He thought I'd wait. He thought love would preserve everything exactly as he left it. He thought he could leave and return whenever he was ready. But life doesn't work that way. When you walk away from someone who truly listens, you risk discovering they listened to everything, even the part where you told them not to wait. Daniel came back, but by then, I was already gone.